This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your sensei, Brian MacMahon. Now, in Season 1 and 2, I got inside the minds of startup investors. In Season 3, I brought in entrepreneurs to share their startup journey. Here, in Season 4, we combine both so you can hear investors critique the investment value proposition of individual companies. You're going to hear how investors make decisions to invest in startups, what makes a great entrepreneur, and how billion-dollar companies are built. So tune in every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on all the major platforms. You can empower your tribe by sharing the podcast, and remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave us a comment. Good morning, it's Brian, we're back, it's Expert Dojo. It is the art of startup war, and it's startup war because this is a war, it's startup, and because I'm a boy, so everything has to be all about war. Now today, I got Carter on the phone. Now, I first saw Carter at a pitch competition over in Marina del Way or Playa Vista. And I remember it really, really well. I remember watching him pitch up there and thinking to myself, wow, number one, this is in the fantasy sports space, which is obviously frigging huge right now. Anybody who's watching the biggest movers in the private markets and the stock exchanges will see that there's some incredible movements on the fantasy sports. And we're going to talk about that later on, but I knew it in the moment. Number two, I thought I never got into fantasy sports, and I never got into it because it's just boring when you pick a shitty team at the start and then like you're stuck with that team all the way through and everybody's saying, oh, look who I picked and that was good. And I go, well, okay, I'll just sit here and reconfirm how shitty I am for the entire season. And number three, I knew there was something better. And I heard Carter pitch and I'm like, man, they've nailed it. Like they've managed to incorporate everything brilliant about being around your favorite sports, being around your buddies so you can talk about your favorite sports, making sure that you can continually rebirth yourself every single week so you can pick your favorite, best, most awesome team in the entire world and give us an opportunity to make a little bit of money or a lot of money. So nailed. So what do? We invested in them. And actually, I would have invested in Carter on the spot. I brought in one of my boys, Jonathan, which everybody knows here over at the dojo. And I said, Jonathan, I want you to play with it. I want you to break it. I want you to bring it back again. And then after a couple of weeks, we're like, yes, 100% in. And I couldn't be happier in the world because now he's on friggin' fire. Carter, half of champion round. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brian, thank you very much for having us. You know, it's a pleasure to actually be a part of your cohort. But you nailed it. Running a startup is a little bit like going to war. And wars are waged in a sequence of battles. And getting you guys on our cap table was a battle that we were happy to win. It took a few battles to get there, but you know what? I'm happy to have you guys as our partners. And you really nailed the presentation of our company.
Yeah, man. And you made me, by the way, you made me beg in the last battle, if I remember correctly. I'm like, okay, please, can we invest? If you don't mind. And then I'm like, okay, so you know what? I want to invest more. And you said, well, you can't. I'm like, well, fuck you. So you only let me put 50,000 into your business, bastard. But you know, it's right? Okay. I forgive you. I would have and I remember you, and of course, what the inevitable happened, which you started getting offers from other investors who started coming in immediately afterwards because you don't need to be that smart to be able to work out that you guys are going to absolutely fly. And then I remember saying to you, hey, can I invest another 50,000? And you're saying, no, not in your dreams. But I'm happy. Listen, I'm happy that we put 50 grand in. I'm really happy to be around you. I love what you're doing. And maybe fill in the gaps, because I do think I have a really, really good fix on what you're doing. But fill in the gaps for the audience of maybe the genesis of where this all came from and what it's growing into.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for the introduction as well as the brief explanation. But ultimately, we're a team composed of nerds and sports fans, and intimately involved with both esports and sports gaming, most prominently fantasy sports. We've come to realize that there's a couple frustrations that are pretty ubiquitous throughout the industry that we've been very surprised to see that no one has addressed. Let's start with the fantasy sports side. Currently, 1 out of 5 Americans play fantasy sports. There's a massive appetite for this throughout our country and ultimately globally. It's really in the fabric and the DNA of how we as sports fans in the U.S. consume sports. We're a stats-crazed country, and we like to organize around sports. 2020, however, is actually going to be the year in which organizing around sport is going to be the most difficult. And leagues are already starting to recognize this and address this, as well as companies like ourselves. As audiences are no longer allowed in venue, and as people are not going to be gathering for sports events at people's homes, ultimately we're going to see a mass shift towards sports fandom organizing online. And in doing so, we've identified a couple problems that we're pretty well timed to solve. And thanks to this timing, we don't need Brian's 50K. But
it's true.
Basically,
it hurts,
we've
but
taken.
It's true.
Yeah. Hey, we appreciate the offer. But yeah, so right now in the fantasy sports side, there's really only 2 ways to play. If you play fantasy sports, you've probably been doing it the same way for 40 years, where you organize a traditional fantasy sports league with your friends. And when you think of a good entertainment product, you think of your favorite movie. You anticipate and you expect that quality entertainment products will engage you and captivate you from the beginning all the way into the end and during the entire middle and in between. Fantasy sports, however, has somehow existed for 40 years and grown to become one of the most prominent entertainment mediums while failing to deliver on this very core promise and premise of an entertainment product. If you play fantasy sports, you know this sentiment. If you draft a bad team or you have a key injury early into your fantasy sports year, ultimately your season is done. You're going to stop playing because there's no actual, tangible, realistic way for you to win. We find it quite astounding that there could be such a big entertainment product that manages to lose a quarter of its core audience within a matter of weeks, yet this product is supposed to be a yearly endeavor. So we sought out to solve directly that. We built a game mode in which we break seasons up into smaller rounds, smaller tranches, allow you to draft multiple times with your friends, and we've highly gamified the approach. We wanted to figure out exactly what are those engagement mechanisms that are missing in fantasy sports, and how can we really bring them into an arena that is already beloved, but ultimately make it so that there's always something for you to do inside fantasy sports. That's one issue we wanted to address. Issue 2, there has been an awesome advent into the fantasy sports industry about 10 years ago, 2009, when FanDuel ultimately was the first offering of daily fantasy sports. They finally took a look at the fantasy sports industry and realized that there is a lot of room for new verticals here. How can we really address and innovate within the space? What they did was build a platform where you can win money, you play against hundreds of thousands of people, and you play for one single day. This now changed the paradigm from the incentive being to beat your friends to the engagement mechanism now being to win money. However, what we're seeing is if you play daily fantasy sports, you actually are very highly unlikely to win money. 98.7% of all participants in fantasy sports actually end up losing to the same 10% of sharks. And as a result, the only engagement mechanism is to win cash.
By the way, I don't want to go past that too quickly. So that's an incredible stat to me, because you always imagine fantasy sports as kind of the one true amateur betting sports game, right? Where, if I just pick my favorite team because I'm an armchair supporter and I've been watching my team for years and I know all of these great players and I pull them all together, then I have an equal chance of winning than anyone else. Like, how is that not true?
Yeah, that's exactly their marketing premise, that, anyone can become a millionaire. Unfortunately, however, the percentage of players that are winning ultimately build their own very sophisticated projections engines, or they buy one. For example, let's take let's say you wanted to draft Mike Trout onto your baseball team. You happen to know that he's a right-handed hitter, pitches better against lefties. He's batting tonight in Colorado. He's playing the Colorado Rockies. You happen to know that the ball flies farther in Colorado. The wind is coming from right field. Therefore, the ball should fly farther, and he has a great record against this particular pitcher. All those factors and variables go beyond a typical sports person's knowledge. However, they're massive variables that can determine success in a single day. And daily fantasy sports is all about finding optimum value for a single day. Therefore, it just simply becomes an optimization problem. And professional daily fantasy sports players have essentially taken to this and essentially cornered the entire industry. They've become comparable to what you would see in a professional poker player. If you sit down at a poker table and you're playing against Phil Ivey, for example, you might not know it, but you're basically food for fodder for him. And the daily fantasy sports industry has unfortunately devolved into that. And we're solving this by...
How sad, right? How sad, really, because it's, at least when you go to Vegas, you know that it's stacked against the house. But when you're playing these games, you really do believe that you can make a couple of quid just by having a lot of fun with your friends. And actually, you make a great point. There are so many deep statistics. And I actually, the thing that really caught me was when you said there are folks who actually buy these prediction algorithms. Actually, oh, come on, really? This is all we had left that was like non-destroyed. And now you've gone and done that too. So I love the fact that you're disrupting that. But is it even possible to disrupt it?
Well, let's look at the numbers here. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast already that 1 out of 5 Americans plays fantasy sports. That is 59 million players. However, DraftKings has somewhere around 3 to 4 million active paying players. Ultimately, the size of people that play daily fantasy sports is pretty minuscule compared to the industry as a whole. And that's mostly because, I played DraftKings 4 times, I lost my money, and I quit. The entire industry is full of people that wanted to play with their friends, but also wanted to play for money and got burned. And that's a massive audience that we're tapping into. And we've had great success tapping into already.
Brilliant. And then, so how will it work? How will it work?
Yeah,
How will it be different now than it was in the past? So you're coming in hard. We have weekly games, which makes it entirely weekly changes, which makes it entirely different. But how does that increase my probability of being able to make money?
Yeah, so we break seasons up into smaller rounds. You can draft with your friends and have a communal event, and you can also draft against the world. You can play these for free, or you can play these for cash. If you play for cash, ultimately what we do is we're creating a lobby environment where instead of it being based on one day, it's actually spread over several days and a couple weeks, depending on how long your round is. You're also playing against a much smaller player pool, and no one person can have the same player on their roster as an opponent. Therefore, it eliminates the issue of it becoming an optimization problem.
Ooh.
And good performing teams are based on their sports knowledge, their skill, and their ability to manage their current fantasy team.
So you've thought really deeply about this to make sure that the fan experience is optimized, right? This is not, you haven't looked at it as a, you know what, we're going to just create something which, people are going to bet and they're going to do stuff. You're saying, what is the fan missing in the experience today? And let's just load all of those features into what we build.
Oh, yeah, man. And, our backgrounds are in gamification. So there's one piece that we feel that, if anyone is a fantasy sports nut, you'll probably have this in the back of your mind. You're probably thinking, wait, that's true, but on DraftKings I can win $1 million. So what we've gone ahead and done is you can win a lot of money playing in our game modes, and you can do it based on your skill. You'll pick up big chunks of change, but as you progress in our app, as you win, as you do good actions, as you do anything that is considered a positive action in fantasy sports, we award you with experience points in our app and our in-game currencies. As you level up really far within our app and earn some of our very rare to earn high-value currencies, those can be redeemed for a 16-person entry into one round where the winner walks away with $10,000, $25,000.
Wow.
So we still offer that ability to win those big prizes that you see in daily fantasy sports. However, you get there based on your skill and by being consistent in our platform and progressing.
But you build stickiness all the way through.
Oh, exactly. That's another thing that really we wanted to address. DraftKings right now is the darling of the NASDAQ. However, anyone that plays on their platform will tell you they don't have any affinity to DraftKings specifically. If any other daily fantasy sports operator offers a better payout for a contest, they switch. They're there to win money, and that's it. We just had Nigel Eccles from FanDuel about 2 weeks ago. He was coming out and just candidly saying the biggest mistake we made at FanDuel was building a platform and trying to layer social in later. They failed to really build those engagement hooks that keep people on their platform, that make it more than just a monetary incentive. We're learning from those who paved the way in the past to hopefully build a better experience.
And do you attribute this to the tremendous success you've had on the fundraising trail? Because it's not just me. There's other institutional investors who are queuing up to be able to put money into you. And I wanted to also create real context around this. We are right in the middle of COVID-19, which is the worst fundraising environment in probably 5 to 10 years. I was even this morning looking at statistics on how we're performing as far as, and if you look at the macro for investment, you'd be like, actually, this isn't too bad compared to the previous quarter. But actually, all of the money is going into the later rounds. So those $100 million plus rounds are actually overperforming against the last quarter. The seed rounds are being decimated. And that's mainly because the angels, whenever there's a potential for a downturn, and honestly, if ever there's been a potential for a downturn, it's right now with everything going on. The angels run for the hills, like they're gone. And the VCs are extremely cautious. But you literally came in here, immediately had a VC chasing you down, phenomenal interest in angels. Do you believe, what do you think it is? Do you think it's because of the team? Because you have a great team. I want to talk about Chase in a few minutes as well. Or do you think it's about the platform itself? Do you think it's about the stickiness? Or you think it's about the industry? Or what? I would say you, but I don't want to give you a big head.
Oh, yeah, no. It's my job as a CEO is to get smart people in the company and get the hell out of their way. But, it's a multitude of factors. I mean, first of all, I've only explained one feature on our platform. I haven't even gotten into esports yet, but ultimately our entire vision of building a 0-to-1 sports entertainment funnel, we think is something people are really receptive to.
Wow.
But in the short term, I mean, we were able to rise to number 6 on iOS for all sports apps globally.
Boom.
We've already been the number 1 fantasy sports app in the world, and we did it on a shoestring budget. We've acquired customers at a very attractive customer acquisition cost, but we've mostly seen 80% organic growth. We've been able to recruit strong brand ambassadors as well. We've done a lot to punch above our weight class, so it became really clear. It became obvious. You just take an influx of cash and plug it into our model, and the value is it's clear where the value is going. Yeah. We've done as much as we can to de-risk our product. And, look, there is the existential threat that sports don't come back and that they don't come back for a long time. But the fact that we've hedged that by building something really innovative in the esports space as well has really made it feel like a safe bet. And, team is very substantive. Our founding team has been part of 3 exits already in the sports tech space. We have a team that has been here, done that in this space. Early stage companies to IPOs. So, one thing that I've been really proud of is, we can have these introductory pitch conferences or pitch events, when someone really gets to know just the bare minimum about us. But I'm really proud about our team. Whenever we spend time, get to know someone intimately over several calls, over several weeks, we always end up impressing them more than, what meets the eye.
Without question. And the one I engage with an awful lot is Chase. And Chase is one of the best product people I know.
Yeah. He's also a brilliant CMO too. We've been just kind of heads down building our version 2, ready for the NFL season this year, which ultimately will now be the last time that we're officially in beta. So
Talk about that, but
ultimate.
talk about that build. I do want to talk about the sports season and its effect on you afterwards, but let's talk a little bit about where the product is right now, what's being built. You've obviously spent a tremendous amount of money on it. The product looks absolutely beautiful from where you are, and kind of how you're going to be onboarding users going forward.
Well, good news is we're going to finally have Android. I have this Android phone in my hand that I don't know how to use. So it would have been nice to have not to have been able to spend our money to date on marketing while having both products on the platform. But we're really excited to have, be able to offer our product to pretty much every smartphone user there is globally. So that's right around the corner in September. And as I mentioned, everything we've launched to date has been beta products. Our product was very specific to a narrow focus. We didn't have gamification in the platform yet. We didn't have the ability to play for cash. We essentially were just proving that the products that we were set out to build, just breaking seasons into smaller chunks, was something that was engaging to and receptive to a sports audience. What we found was that 73% of our users were playing within the last 2 weeks, which more than validates our most important hypothesis. Typically, you see 73% of people playing in fantasy sports, 2 weeks into a year, let alone several months down the road. So we were very happy to see that retention. But now we're finally about to execute on the vision that we set out to build when we first started the company, which is to have a product where users can play for free, they can play for cash, and it's highly gamified, and a user interface that's absolutely beautiful, that is able to be applied to all types of sports. NFL, baseball, esports, CSGO, League of Legends, you name it. Ultimately, we're planning on building an entire discovery engine. We want to use our gamification to reward users to try out new sports, even if that sport is something that's digitized, that you play with your thumbs, or if it's something that you previously didn't have interest in. We want to reward you and ultimately facilitate your discovery as a sports fan.
Beautiful. And then, so talk to me about Zero to Hero. Come out in September, hard launch. What's going to happen?
Yeah, so fingers crossed the NFL still goes on. I'd put that at about 85% likelihood right now. But assuming that does take place, quite frankly, COVID is actually going to be a big opportunity for us. We're going to see every sporting event played without fans. There isn't going to be a Super Bowl party. There aren't going to be people gathering every Sunday with their friends. No, they're going to be organizing online. And we are going to be the first product that's going to allow them to consistently reorganize and play together and draft a fantasy team through the NFL and make sure we keep people together longer. As communities are organizing online, it's going to be a very big opportunity for us to grow this year.
Man, this is a beautiful thing, right? This is a beautiful thing.
It's it was obviously it felt like a punch to the gut the second we saw all sports shut down, but quite frankly, it's actually been a huge opportunity for us. We've been able to grow quite substantially throughout the COVID era, mostly because a lot of companies kind of buried their head in the sand. They said, well, there's no sports, we have nothing to do. The reality is there's always a massive sports appetite, and quite frankly, it's been more satiable than ever. As a result, we've been able to build game modes around the NFL draft, finding these little moments of white space and really innovating on what already exists just to continue to grow. We were the first company to ever launch fantasy sports for the playoffs. You ask anyone who plays fantasy sports, they're going to say, how did that not exist previously? And, we felt the same. We continue to just find ways to innovate in areas that, quite frankly, when you first feel it, it's kind of like this should have always been this way.
I agree. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What date are you going to get your first million users?
Yeah. So we're projecting.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. We've thought about that. Yep.
Yeah. We're projecting to hit that in 2022.
Amazing. So, and as we're almost in 2021, is that like beginning of 2022 or end of 2022?
We're aiming towards about October 2022 because right
Fantastic.
around then we'll be looking at kick off our new NFL season, and we'll be doing Major League Baseball playoffs. We'll have multiple esports in full force. We'll have every sport, major American sport, available on the platform.
Fantastic. So that should then be your timing for your Series B, which means your Series A probably should be at the beginning of 2021. How close am I?
We're looking more at probably about 12 months to 14 months from now. We have our current forecast based on what we're going to raise from our seed is pretty aggressive. And we like aggressive. That's in our DNA. We can always scale that back and increase the timeline, but we don't think we will.
But you won't.
No, we won't. And, there's always other instruments because the beautiful benefit of our business is it's ultimately a very cash-rich one. There's money that isn't revenue, but we will have a lot of cash. The way in which users play is, they play to win money. We keep 15% of that money as revenue, and 85% is paid out to winners. However, a lot of them don't cash out. So we're a very cash-rich business. There's always ways that we can then, take out additional loans and debt to further that, expand that runway out.
Beautiful.
But, most likely you're not going to hear from us for Series A up until around September of 2021.
Oh, fun. Why do you ruin all my fun? Although, the funny thing is, anything...
Yeah, Brian, we'll get your 50K in there.
Mate, listen, anything can happen, though, because I believe people are going to come back to sports. This is like an addict without heroin. I mean, folks have been 3 months with no sports. The entire American fabric is breaking down. By the time we get American football back again, people are going to be so desperate to engage. I mean, have you seen some of the biggest industries that are growing now are getting a cardboard picture of yourself and putting it in the seat of the stadium so that you can be at the match while you're at home and paying $30 to be there. Like that's how desperate people are to come back. So I believe when we come back, it's not that folks are just going to want to engage. I think they're going to want to engage multiplied by 3.
Hey, you get to tell your friends, "Hey, look, Mom, I'm sitting courtside."
Yeah, but with your app, you are courtside. Like that's the beautiful thing. Like as you're getting engaged, like you're right in the middle of it. Plus you're engaging with your friends. Plus you're giving them crap. Like this is the real experience. This is where sports experiential programs are going in the future. So I think number one, you saw a trend, which a lot of other folks didn't see. Number 2, what's happened with COVID in sports will increase the appetite of people for sports. And actually, more than the appetite, it will increase the need for people to release through sports by hundreds of %. And finally, you just have hit a moment in time where change is needed just within the current offering that there's out there.
And Brian, that's actually a fantastic segue. So far we've been able to capitalize really successfully on, that appetite for sports. But one thing that we've seen is the timeline for esports ultimately was accelerated by 5 years. There's right now, if you go on ESPN2, I guarantee you're going to see someone playing video games.
Right.
And there's been more eyeballs on esports than anyone would have ever projected. It took a cataclysm of events to have this many eyeballs on esports, and unfortunately, that's what happened. But what we have seen is esports still to this day are not at all doing a good job converting casual general sports fans into the arena, let alone really getting casual video game fans to enjoy watching all esports. And right now, if you look on some of the top fan engagement tools for esports, there's some big ones out there. Esports One is a good startup out of Santa Monica. But, a lot of people are playing on DraftKings or what they already know. And what you see is these tools necessitate that you have an intimate knowledge of the particular video game in all of its mechanics. You need to know the name of these esports teams. You need to know who these athletes are on each team. You need to know exactly how they score and what their roles are. And look, for fantasy sports, that works for an NFL product. It works quite well for an NBA product. It works well for something that is mainstream and consumed at rigorous levels. Esports isn't there yet. Esports is still new, and it's just right now trying to invite everyone to pick up this information. But there's one key difference. If I sit down and I watch a tennis match for the first time, yeah, the scoring might be a little funky. I'll ask myself, why are they calling it Love 15? But you'll be able to quickly understand exactly what's going on, and you'll be able to really easily comprehend that what they're doing is difficult. The skill immediately translates. If you go and watch League of Legends right now, which is the biggest esport in the world, you'll probably have the same experience I did. You'll think to yourself, what the hell am I looking at? And we think that's a problem. And we feel that a lot of the esports industry has projected that they'll continue to grow and grow and grow, but have ignored the fact that this doesn't translate very well to the general audience. And quite frankly, this COVID era has highlighted that quite well. So we're taking a different approach. We're building the first esport game modes that actually make it fun for anyone who's watching an esport for the first time, as well as something that's quite fun for seasoned veterans of the industry. What we do is we create live game modes on your phone that will synchronize with play, whether you're watching it on Twitch or whether you're watching someone actually in a venue for whenever that actually happens again. And we ask you very simple questions, yes or no questions. Is this player going to get the next kill? Is this team going to defuse the bomb? Is this player going to have over 5 assists? Yada yada yada. And in doing so, as you're watching an esport for the first time, we're showing you which actions matter and which thresholds are good and bad, all while giving you skin in the game. You can play these for cash, and you can win money based on scoring the most points for having the most correct answers. And also, we gamify the approach as well. So we want to put something in the hands of everyone who's watching esports for the first time that makes it fun for them. They're learning along the way. It's showing you which actions to keep your eye towards. And it's also doing it in a way in which you actually have a vested interest in the outcome.
So when do you think this is going to be up and running?
Yeah, so we're targeting December of this year for that first product.
Wow, man,
And
this is a
we're planning
big
to go
year.
we're planning to go to market with CSGO. And it'll be right around the time where we're starting to wrap up our NFL game mode. We'll be transitioning to our playoff NFL game mode, but ultimately we're gonna try and use their gamification to convert NFL fans into esports fans as well.
Very good. Wow. So it's a big old year. Okay. In this final segment of the podcast, I want to cover a little bit about you. So I want to take it back to when you started off the company, maybe look at some of the challenges that you were facing, maybe some obstacles that would have stopped a lesser human, some of the difficulties, maybe some folks who you thought were your friend and they turned out not to be anything but. And take me through a little bit of that early journey, that journey of doubt at the beginning, because anybody listening to you now is going to see nothing but confidence, and for all the right reasons, because you've been built out and you've been validated and you've got investors who are putting money into you. But take us back to a kind of a more vulnerable place.
Yeah. So this might tug at the heartstrings, but first idea I had to start this company was I was playing fantasy basketball with my dad, as we do every single year, and we were so excited that the NBA playoffs were starting, but bummed out that that ultimately meant that fantasy sports was over. And I just thought to myself, I feel like everyone that plays fantasy sports has the same issue. Why is this so? So ultimately just started tinkering and coming up with ideas. And right as I was working on this in my free time at my other job, sports betting was legalized federally. So started to see that there was a big opportunity here, and kind of got the ball rolling. I had been investing a lot in crypto, so I had money that I wanted to invest into a startup. But on a personal level, I actually haven't shared this with you previously, Brian, but about 2 months before starting the company, I lost my sister.
Oh my God.
And it was right around then that, pain and loss is, it's energy. People choose to do what they do with energy. Some people are self-destructive in those times. I felt as if it was really kind of a call to action. I was 27 at the time. No, I was 26 at the time. And, I was kind of just really coming into my own as an adult and, as a professional. And it really put the seriousness under me. It made me realize how short life is. And, I felt like I had a lot of potential to, be a successful entrepreneur and to really kind of make the most out of my time on this earth. So, it put a level of seriousness into me that I channeled really into Champions Round. I dedicate a lot of our success so far to, her loss and her memory. And, it makes me want to put 10,000% into it every single day.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. That's really horrible.
It's okay.
But beautiful as well to actually take it to the next level and incorporate her in there as well. How beautiful. Absolutely lovely.
Thanks.
And so the nice thing as well, I suppose, in a really, in a kind of a strange way, every success you have is kind of a part of her being with you along for that journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the little moon boot in each step that I get as I go through this journey. It's a little extra lift.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
I
obviously,
couldn't think of a better way to honor her.
we all face challenges. No challenges is as tough as that. I was always stunned when we first met and then we were going through it. I was going, man, how's he doing so well in every single journey? Like normally, moving from that, just few percent where your company is just starting to, growing it and building it and getting stronger. There's a lot of hurdles that hit you along the way, and it just seems that so far you've flown through all of them. And maybe that's her spirit coming with you. Maybe it's the fact that you're doing it for all the right reasons. Or maybe you're just a phenomenal entrepreneur and the other 2 points are helping. But for
You
whatever
know
reason it is,
what?
you're in the time of your
Sorry.
life right now.
Yeah. One bit of advice I just generally give is, it's super easy to start a startup when you're wide-eyed, you're excited, you think you have the best idea that the entire world needs to see. You feel as if you have something the entire world is going to take by storm. But ultimately, reality sets in. You walk through a valley of no's. A lot of people poke holes in your idea. You're still very early on. It's kind of those moments that really make the difference between success and failure, I feel, And for us, we've overcome it by, you met me at Playa del Rey, but as you know, I go to pretty much every networking event under the sun.
You know
You know,
everybody. You make me
oh
look
yeah.
like you make me look like a slacker, and I ain't no slacker. But like, yeah, I met that guy down the road. I'm like, well, you met him as well. I mean, how many people have you met in the last 6 months? It's incredible.
Man,
And by
it
the
blows
way,
my mind too.
yeah, and by the way, on that point, like I'm a big believer in that. The harder I work, the luckier I get. This is not an accident. I put myself in enough positions to be successful and I will be successful. And that's the mantra that you have as well. Leave nothing to chance. Go after everyone. Enter the conversation with confidence, but also with the humility of being able to learn what you can from the other side. And then you walk away the smartest guy alive. And I think actually, if I was going to credit what's the biggest area for you which has been led to your success, it's exactly that. That's how you've got folks like Chase on board. That's how you've managed to make the platform absolutely beautiful. That's how you've incorporated all of these additional features. You haven't just added one feature onto what a competitor has done really well. You've reinvented what they've done based on a continual place of learning. So it's awesome. Now, I want to finish this in a place. You are now speaking just to VCs. I think to anybody listening who loves fantasy sports, they're like, we're in. Let us know when Champions Round comes out. And I'm all over that sucker. But you're speaking just to VCs right now. Your current round, which is your seed round, I expect it to be subscribed by the time we get to the end of the cohort, which is in 3 weeks' time. What do you have to say to them about what the company is going to turn into, not just for the seed round, but also for the A and every other round going forward?
Yeah, so that's actually it's a great segue. We actually have a fantastic lead investor for our Series Seed. They're taking up half the round, and the second half is going pretty quickly. I got a couple other strategic ventures that are pretty close to closing as well. But I just explained a couple features that we're doing. That's what we're going to market with. But our goal is to really build the entire funnel for sports entertainment. and do it in a way that no one has done before. Everything we've done to date has been targeted at Generation Z, and they're free-to-play games. As communities organize around sport more often, you're going to find that those communities are going to go through their sports discovery journey together. We take free-to-play, young, novice sports players, we gamify their approach, and we then allow them to use our platform to discover their newest sport, their favorite player, and their favorite teams. And then next, we introduce them to paid fantasy sports. As they mature, as they become more hardened in their knowledge, they can then put those skills to the test to win money and again progress in our platform. And it's all building brand loyalty because there's monetary value in progressing in our platform. Ultimately then, around 2022, 2023, as sports betting really starts to open up in the big states throughout the entire US, we'll be at a scale where we can then start to become a sports book. There are a lot of other people jumping into the sports book arena. However, none of them have built the entire funnel from beginning of a sports fan until the end. That's how we go from 0 to 1. We build the funnel where we take a beginning novice sports fan, free to play in their discovery, walk them into paid fantasy sports, and ultimately into sports betting. And that's the entire vision for the company.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I can't think of a better place to leave it. And I can't think of a better startup that we were happier to invest in, or I am happier to be beside you on your journey, my friend. Can you share with everybody website address so folks can find you, our app address, and then also your own email address so people can reach out to you?
The website is just championsround.com, which I can't believe I got for $12. And you can email me at carter@championsround.com, as well as find the app just by searching Champions Round on the App Store.
Beautiful. And to all investors out there, don't be a schmuck like us. Get your full allocation and get in fast. Carter, it's a pleasure, my friend.
Brian, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2, but make sure you join us every single week.